Jangan komentar sebelum tonton video ini sampai habis ya.
In the New Testament, there are a lot of inconsistencies. What we have to hold in our hands are around 5,700 Greek manuscripts of all or part of the New Testament. It is 5,700 Greek manuscripts. Believe it or not, no two of these manuscripts agree in all of their particulars. In fact, some scholars have estimated the differences in the manuscripts to be as many as 400,000. Now, it is not only Bart D. Ehrman who holds this opinion. Others do as well. What is the reason why there are so many differences between plethora of manuscripts that we have in our hands? Well, everybody can come to their own conclusions, but the scholars conclude that the scribes were untrained, unreliable, they had particular doctrines in their minds, and they worked those into the manuscripts as they copied them. Let's look at what we consider, or what Christians consider, to be the most holy of the Scriptures, the Gospels. The Gospels attributed to Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Who wrote them? Let's remember. Mark was a secretary to Peter, Luke a companion to Paul. In Luke and Matthew, there are lists which enumerate the names of the disciples. Neither Mark nor Luke are on them, so they were not disciples. Even if they had authored the books, even if they had authored the Gospels, they were not disciples to begin with. Stanton poses an interesting question. Quote, "Was the eventual decision to accept Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John correct? Today it is generally agreed that neither Matthew nor John was written by an apostle, and Luke may not have been associates of the apostles." Origen, the 3rd century church father, was quoted as having written, "The differences among the manuscripts have become great, either through the negligence of some copyists or through the perverse audacity of others. They either neglect to check over what they have transcribed, or in the process of checking, they make additions or deletions as they please." The Bible that most people read is a collection of 27 books. Out of those, a whopping 9 out of 27 are either forged or highly suspect. Which 9? Ephesians, Colossians, 2 Thessalonians, 1 and 2 Timothy, Titus, 1 and 2 Peter, and Jude. 9 out of 27. A full 1/3 of the New Testament books and epistles are to one degree or another either forged or suspect. Let me read some quotes. Lehman contributes, quote, "What Paul proclaimed as Christianity was sheer heresy, which could not be based on the Jewish or Essene faith, or on the teaching of Rabbi Jesus. But, as Schoenfeld says, the Pauline heresy became the foundation of Christian orthodoxy, and the legitimate church was disowned as heretical." Was this only to be found in the writings of Lehman? No. Paul's view was not universally accepted, or, one might argue, even widely accepted. Even more striking, Paul's own letters indicate that there were outspoken, sincere, and active Christian leaders who vehemently disagreed with him on this score and considered Paul's views to be a corruption of the true message of Christ. One should always bear in mind that in this very letter of Galatians, Paul indicates that he confronted Peter over just such issues. He disagreed, that is, even with Jesus' closest disciple. Joel Carmichael, quote, "We are a universe away from Jesus. If Jesus came only to fulfill the law and the prophets, if he thought that not one iota, not a dot would pass from the law, that the cardinal commandment was, quote, 'Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one,' and that no one was good but God, what would he have thought of Paul's handiwork?" There are many verses of the New Testament that are so uncertain that they are actually even left blank. If we read Acts 8:37, we have one problem. Acts 8:37, look it up. Try to read it. You can't. You can't read it. Why? Because it's empty. It's not there. They enumerate it. You'll have Acts 8:36, and then Acts 8:37, and then Acts 8:38, but Acts 8:37 is left blank. They don't know what it supposedly said, if it ever said anything at all. And that is not a lone example. There are many others. Matthew 17:21, 18:11, Mark 7:16, 9:44, 9:46, parts of Luke 9:56, 17:36. It goes on. These are all verses which are either enumerated and left blank or in which significant portions have been cut out. Why? Because the content are unknown. The point we have arrived at is a point in which, because of greater scholastic analysis, because of greater achievements among not the critics of Christianity, but among Christian scholars, are recognizing that the Bible does not stand up to the criteria necessary to call it unaltered, inerrant, divine scripture. It is very much altered. It is very much corrupted. Omissions, additions, alterations, doctrinal prejudice. Unfortunately, these are not my conclusions. These are the conclusions of Christian scholars. We have to respect that. A person who claims to be Christian is claiming to follow the teachings of Jesus Christ. Those who honor the scholars, those who honor the evidence, will agree.
Terima kasih ya yang sudah tonton video ini sampai habis. Jangan lupa untuk share video ini jika merasa video ini bermanfaat. Cek dan share juga video-video kami yang lainnya ya.